This candy cane heart ornament is so easy to make with our free pattern. Not only is it cute to hang on the tree, but it also makes an excellent gift topper. So let's get going. First, download the free candy cane pattern that we have. I'll put a link in the description below, and put that on 2 pieces of fabric that are laying on top of each other. Be sure the right sides are together if you have a pattern on your fabric. You're going to do this twice with 2 separate pieces. You are not going to be cutting out this pattern. Don't do that yet. Instead, you are going to be sewing through both layers of fabric all the way around, leaving about a 2 to 3 inch gap for an opening. Now be sure to use red thread. I tried to cheat and use white thread. It does not work. I was just being really lazy, but when the seams start being stretched, you definitely see that white thread, which is common sense, but sometimes I just try to be lazy sewer. So now as we are sewing around that pattern, I backstitch at the beginning of my stitching. I will backstitch at the end of my stitching as well. And this is an easy thing to sew, but you have to go really slow because there's a lot of curves. So what that entails is doing just a few stitches and then putting the needle in the fabric, picking up the presser foot, moving the fabric around so that you can continue moving around those curves. You definitely want to go really slow. In some cases, I just used the crank wheel on the side to move the needle just like 1 stitch or 2 stitches before I turned the fabric around. So keep that in mind. That might be something you need to do. I did leave I left an opening that was too small. It was a little bit challenging. So I would say do about 2 to 3 inches opening and then cut around the outside of that stitching about 1/4 of an inch. And I left a larger piece outside of the opening just so it was easier to turn in and finish off the seams later on. Now what I'm doing is using scissors to kind of cut out those corners. I was trying to cut little tiny notches, but there wasn't enough seam allowance. So I just went in and started snipping. And this is so that when you turn it inside out, like right here, that those curves will lay a little bit flatter. So just be sure not to cut through the stitches. Now, as you are turning this inside out, it is going to be a little fussy. It's a really tiny little thing to be turning out. You're more than likely going to need a turning tool, but just stick with it. Now, I use some polyfill. This is my hack of using cheap and expensive polyfill. I'll put that video in the description below. And then just use some of that stuffing and stuff both of the candy canes. You want them to be pretty firm so that they hold the shape. And once you get to about where you can't stuff any more polyfill in there, that's when you are going to be hand sewing those openings. I used my turning tool to kind of get that stuffing up into that top of the hook because that's going to be a little bit more difficult. Now I used some hand stitches. I didn't do it really well. Honestly, it could probably be done better than that, but just basic stitches to close up that seam. Now it's time to add the candy cane stripes. So I used a hot glue gun for this. You could use stitches if you wanted to. It's just really easier with the hot glue gun. Put a little dot of glue on the back of the candy cane at the bottom. Then lay a cut end of, this is about 1/8 of an inch wide ribbon. So after that is dry, start wrapping the ribbon around the candy cane. You are going to want to wrap about 6 times around each candy cane, and each piece of ribbon should be about 18 inches long, and that should be pretty much enough to be wrapping around the candy cane. You can kind of fiddle with the diagonals as you are going. Make sure that you've gotten them to where you want them to be, and then figure out where you are going to stop the ribbon in the back of that candy cane. And at a good place where you've got the ribbon set to where you want it to be, just put another little drop of glue in the back, little drops, because a big drop, it just gets really messy. And lay the ribbon across that glue. Then just allow it to dry. And once it is dried, you can go in with your scissors and cut it close to that glue part and finish off that candy cane. You are then going to be Duplicating this exact same process on the other candy cane. You want to try to get the diagonals to look pretty close, about the same area, so you can keep holding them up side by side to make sure that they're about in the general direction and general width on each candy cane. Now it's time to join these two candy canes together to become a heart. So in order to make this heart, you're going to do like an over-under pattern. So it doesn't matter which side you do it on, but whatever you do, you want the hook of the candy cane to be over the other one. And then at the bottom, you want the bottom of the candy cane to be under the other one. So one end of the candy cane is going to be over, the other one's going to be under. Then to make your hanger, you are going to want to take a piece of ribbon, probably about 8 to 12 inches, and cut that to the size that you want. And then find a good space on that candy cane hook that is going to be underneath the other one. And you're going to want to add a little drop of glue. So add it to an area where that other candy cane is going to be covering when you put it on top of this one. You don't want to put it too high up because then you'll see the open ends in the glue. The candy cane won't be covering it. So just go ahead and glue down both of those ends onto that little section of the candy cane hook that's going to be hidden soon, and allow that to dry. Then once that is dry, it is time to assemble the candy canes. So I am putting a little bit of glue. I put way too much glue, by the way. I put way too much glue when I was putting these candy canes together. You need a lot less than this, but I put glue right there at the tip of the candy cane hook and then put the other one on top of it. I pressed together. Honestly, I wouldn't press too hard because I had issues with that and the glue was oozing. So then at the base of the candy cane, you're going to want to glue those together. I found it easier to put the glue on the back of the candy cane that's going to be on top, and then just kind of maneuver that bottom one right behind it. And again, don't press too hard because I had glue coming out everywhere. And once the glue is on the fabric, then it's not easy to clean up. And yeah, just a little bit will be sufficient, trust me. So essentially, I'm showing you what not to do based on the mistakes that I'm making while I made this ornament so you can avoid them in the future. And then you're done. It is so insanely cute. This is such a great handmade Christmas ornament. I love it so much. I have a lot of other sewing projects for Christmas ornaments. I'm going to put those links in the description below. Leave a Christmas tree in the comments section if you want to add one of these cute ornaments to your Christmas tree. Happy sewing!